All right, we are back with another Growth Lab training session, and today we have something very special for you because it's the very first Pinterest Ads Masterclass, and who better to host it than our dream team, Jen Malka and Jack Paxton. Welcome back to the Growth Lab, guys.
Thanks, Hans. Appreciate it, as always.
So Pinterest Ads, what can we expect to learn today?
So yeah, Pinterest is a really interesting platform. They've been growing in leaps and bounds. So today we're kind of going to go through how to get started. They've made it a lot easier with the Shopify app. So I'm going to show you how to use that, how to launch something super quickly from Shopify, or if you really want to get into the weeds, how you would go about that in the actual Pinterest ad account. We'll probably skip over a little bit of the creation, but I'll give you some links where you can go and create it. But we'll dive through all that, and I'll tell you sort of what to create, what best pins to use, what audiences to create, all the tracking stuff that you need to know. So yeah, it's kind of like a beginner class to getting started running Pinterest ads.
Sounds awesome. Sounds like there might be an advanced class coming up at some point. But this is great. To everyone out there, we will be sharing a full replay of today's session. We will also be sharing all the pro tips and tools that Jen and Jack might be sharing. And if you haven't already, check out our Growth Lab community on Facebook. I'll drop a link to that in the chat as well. But otherwise, take it away, guys.
Great. I'm just going to share my screen. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday. Let me know by giving me a thumbs up or a hi if you can see this in the screen there. I'll present it so it's full screen so you can all see it. All right, so getting started, today I'm going to teach you a bunch about Pinterest. So very interesting platform, especially if you are in specific niches. We do find that some niches work a lot better with Pinterest than others. And starting off, a little bit of background on me, just so that you know that you're not taking advice from someone who hasn't executed anything. I've been running ads since 2010, spent a huge amount of money, $200 million plus on Facebook and Google, and other platforms like Pinterest, Reddit, all that sort of stuff. Really specialize in e-commerce brands, so Shopify is a really good fit. And today we're going to be covering a bunch of stuff. I sort of went over it briefly, but we're going to start with the fundamentals of understanding your customer and the buyer journey. The buyer journey is really important with Pinterest, probably more important than any other platform, just because it is a specific kind of discovery platform. And I'll go into this a little bit later. How to create your Pinterest account with Shopify so that you can easily sync up everything. Everything works smoothly. Creating audiences and conversions, because that is the #1 thing that we see beginners getting stuck on. It's setting up the right audiences and having the correct conversion tracking. And then we'll go into a few things about what sort of pins you should be using for ads, how to set up a campaign. I'll let you look over my shoulder as I set one up, and we can ask questions along the way. If there's anything else that you want me to go over, drop in the comments what you'd want me to cover. If it's questions, if it's certain things about Pinterest that you want me to show you, let me know in the comments, and Jen will hit me up saying that it's a question or something else that we want to go more in depth on. So we've been doing marketing for a while, and when you really break it down to some core fundamentals, these 3 things are what we really focus on improving week after week. So if you're ever wondering like why my sales aren't growing, or how can I improve my sales, how can I make my store more profitable, I think of these 3 levers that you can pull. So the first one is your copy and your creative. Now, it's not specifically just your ad copy and creative. This could be copy on your emails, your homepage, your product pages, your product titles. All of the things that you do online to sell your product is going to somehow relate back to copy and creative. Now, I'm sure you're well aware that some brands that spend a huge amount of money on copy and creative nail it. So you look at Nike and all these other brands that are spending millions of dollars a year, they have nailed their copy and the creative. So that is a really high converting factor that you can adjust. So improving the copy or improving the creative to move in the right direction. So that would be, changing different titles on your products. It might be changing the call to actions on your homepage, changing up the offer that you have. There's a bunch of different ways that you can adjust copy to try and improve your conversion rates. When you're looking at ads, for example, with Pinterest, editing some of your copy and creative, you might look at metrics like click-through rate and engagement rate, because the higher the engagement you have and the higher the click-through rate, generally speaking, that means that people are more engaged and more interested. So the next lever you can look at is targeting and traffic. So this is where you're getting your traffic from. So, one big differentiator is organic and paid. So you can get organic traffic from Google search and that sort of thing, or social organic. So that's when you're posting to Pinterest, but you're not necessarily running ads. That's another strategy you can definitely use. And then there's paid traffic. So that's things like Facebook, Google, Pinterest, all those platforms where you pay to get traffic. Now you can continually adjust this because when you're paying for traffic, you have a lot of control over who you show your ads to. So continually testing keywords, continually testing interests, and continually testing different audiences that you can create. So that's another lever that you can pull. And the last lever that you can pull is the website experience. So when someone clicks through your ad, clicks through your email, or finds you via Google, when your page loads, how fast does it load? What's the first thing that they think your product does within the first 3 seconds? Is your product really clear above the fold? Is the call to action really clear? Are you giving someone an easy buy option? So the website experience is another lever that you can pull to drastically improve your conversion rates and your ROAS. So think about those 3 things anytime you get stuck, anytime you're wondering, how can I improve something? Look at these 3 areas and you'll probably find an area that you can improve on to help you get better click-through rates, get better CPAs, cost per acquisition, or ROAS, return on ad spend, and how to get a higher website conversion rate. Now, because we're talking about Pinterest, I want to really go over the funnel a little bit. So you usually have top of the funnel traffic and bottom of the funnel traffic. Now, the difference between these two is usually the intent of that traffic. So the top of the funnel traffic are usually people who don't know about you. They don't know what you sell. They don't know your product. They don't know who you are. And they are top of the funnel because they are very cold. And I'm going to show you a slide next that's going to really demonstrate this a little bit better. I just want to give you some examples of top and bottom of the funnel. And then the bottom of the funnel are people who have already visited your site. Maybe they're on your email list. Maybe they are engaging with you on social media. Maybe they've already been to your website a few times. These are the bottom of the funnel traffic group, and they are super engaged and ready to buy. So your goal is to fill up this funnel as much as you can from the top and keep pushing people all the way down to the bottom. And so some examples of top of the funnel stuff is educational pins or Pinterest, because it's really a platform for idea generation and styling. People use Pinterest a lot to envision what they want to buy and do the research. And then as they move down that funnel, you find that they usually convert by maybe more specific product catalog pins, or maybe they convert by your email, or maybe they find you on Facebook or Instagram. As they move down that funnel, your job is to attract them and then nurture them. Now, this is a good example of what that nurturing process looks like and the type of messaging. Now, you want to remember all of this because when you go to create your pins and your ads, you want to think about, am I targeting the prospecting traffic, which is cold, or am I targeting the remarketing traffic, which is hot? And that's going to change the type of content that you have in your pin. So prospecting, you want to tell, industry secrets, shock factor. You want to make it so that you're engaging someone, you're capturing their attention. You're not just asking them to buy something. Because if you just go straight up and say, hey, buy my product, it's the best, chances are people aren't going to believe you, and they probably won't buy from you. If anything, and they need that product, they'll probably go to one of your competitors. Because you would have given them the idea like, hey, I need this product, but this guy is obviously not the right one for me, because you haven't provided any value first. And so as you move down, you can start changing your messaging a little bit. You can then start talking about the benefits as it gets warmer. Then you can start showing testimonials, proof, claims. Proof meaning like, how does the product work? Does it work? Do you have before and after shots? Do you have something that shows your product improving someone's life? And then you can start looking at the discounts, different offers, different deals that you can offer as they get into that hot range. Now, the hot range is going to be when you're running things like remarketing ads. So, the prospecting would be when you're targeting people with a specific interest, or they've got a specific search term. Remember those 2 things, because that's going to be 2 types of targeting we can use in Pinterest. And then the remarketing is going to be audiences that have been generated from us and that are bucketing everybody who visits our website, or bucketing everybody who engages with our pins, bucketing people who are on our email list, that sort of thing. So just keep in mind that process and think about what campaign you're running Does it fit into prospecting or remarketing? And then think about the pins in that campaign. Does that pin attract and capture engagement? Are you offering value? Or is that pin direct response and you're just asking them to make that purchase? All right, so a few things to make Pinterest really, really easy. So they have released a Pinterest app in the Shopify store that makes everything super easy to set up. So once you install the app, what you want to do is you want to connect it to your store and it'll ask you to log in. And what this is going to do is it's going to add all your tracking for you. If you're a Shopify e-commerce store, it's going to create your product catalog. So it's going to pretty much make the feed that sends all of your product information from Shopify to Pinterest. So you don't have to do anything. And will also allow you to create audiences based off what they do on your website. So this is by far the easiest way to connect Pinterest up to your Shopify store and get started with Pinterest ads. Adding the tracking individually and the catalog and all that sort of stuff gets way too complicated. Just use the app. And all you have to do is search for the app and you'll be able to find it in Google and then add it straight to your store. Now, the next step, I will show you actually how to just create an ad and what it looks like. So once you have it installed, you're gonna have down here, you're gonna have your Pinterest as a sales channel. Now, if you want a super quick way to launch a Pinterest ad, you're not really looking to get too in the weeds because this screen scares you. For example, if this screen scares you and you don't want to even deal with this, what you can do is you can actually run ads from Shopify. So if you don't want to dive in here and create campaigns and all that sort of stuff, you don't want to do keyword targeting, you don't want to do different interests or audiences, that sort of stuff, what you can do is you can go into Shopify and just go to your marketing thread, your marketing section here, and you can click on your overview. And up here, you can create a campaign. And what you can do here is you can choose any of the channels that you've already connected. So for example, you can see that we have Facebook connected here, we have Pinterest, we have our Microsoft, Snapchat. So these are all the different sales channels that we have apps connected to. Jen, you asked some question?
Can you hear me? Sorry. So they wanted to know how do you get onto these apps? How do you get onto these apps if you don't have a Shopify? You can't actually use it on the US one. So how do you get the Pinterest app onto your store if you don't have the Shopify app on it? Hold on. Hold on, Jack.
Turn on audio. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Sorry.
You can mute yours. All right, great. So circling back on that, yeah, Pinterest is only available in, the Pinterest app is only available in the US right now. Definitely contact their support, ask when it's gonna roll out in your country, because it is by far way easier using the app than it is to manually install. So one thing to note is that you can install it with Google Tags Manager, but there is a bunch of documentation, and I think I've got this open here. You can just easily contact them here, contact us, and you can go through the process of setting up with Google Tags Manager or something like that. But even when you talk to the Pinterest support, they're gonna recommend that you install an app because it's just so much easier to do. So ask support when it's gonna be available in your country. If it's not available in your country, you wanna do it right now, Google Tags Manager is probably the best way to do it. and they will send you a bunch of documentation on how to do that. You're more than likely going to need a developer. Pinterest is definitely a lot harder to install manually than it is to use the app. So encourage you to use the app. Okay, so going back to creating the ad from Shopify. So this becomes really easy because, as you can see, there's not many fields here that you have to fill out. So you could say, this is a bread company. So we could do, bread guide. You could choose the product that you want to do. So we have a bunch of products in here. Let's just choose like this one, for example. And it will pull in the product. You can set your budget, you can set your start date, your end date, and now the downside of this is you have very little control. So here you can see you can target like, male or females, let's say females, and let's say the location is United States. Might have to do California. I don't know why that's not populating. But I don't know. That should populate to your country or to your state actually. And then you can also choose your targeting ages. So this is a basic way. We don't usually use this process just because we would like to have much more control over our targeting. But this will essentially just populate all the information from your product. It will post the ad to your Pinterest ad account, and it will kind of just automate the targeting for you based off pixel data and pretty much your remarketing audience. So it is a very easy way to get it set up, and it usually does perform okay because it's mostly remarketing audiences, which is in that hot traffic zone. So coming back to the deck here that we have, let's just open this up to maximum size. Now, going into the actual ads that are offered within the Pinterest ad account. So you have 3 types of targeting. You have audiences, interests, and keywords. Now, it does get a little bit confusing here because it's not as straightforward as Facebook or Google in the types of ads that you can run, because they do have a bunch of different ad placements. Now, this is a great little chart that will allow you to see where your ads are going to show depending on what targeting you use. So the way that I usually suggest brands set this up is that they have separate campaigns for audiences, separate campaigns for interest, and separate campaigns for keywords. That gives you much better insight into what is working, what's not, and it can allow you to control your spend a lot easier when you're trying to kind of optimize. Now, obviously the home feed is the most popular. It runs on everything. This is where most of the engagement happens because it's most native. And then you kind of work down the relevance of the search intent of the people on Pinterest. Now, one thing I do really like is the keywords in search. So if you've ever run Google ads, yep. Jen, do you have a question?
Sorry, I just wanted to kind of go in. I know you're talking about interests and audiences, and a lot of people are actually saying that they are in fashion, apparel, and jewelry accessories. So I thought that was really interesting in the polls because it's like 60% are in fashion. When you talk about these ad types, can you reference in fashion and jewelry and accessories?
Yeah, sure. So with jewelry and fashion, you're really going to want to look at mostly doing your remarketing audiences. So people who look at your products and then maybe they don't purchase because they're shopping around for different styles, different brands, that sort of stuff. So audiences is going to be the first place you start. So this is people who view a product on your website, and then they're maybe browsing through Pinterest for other styles or other products to purchase, and then your ads are showing up there. You can use product ads. So that's just literally the product image from your store and the product descriptions. And then you can also use actual lifestyle shots. Lifestyle shots perform a lot better on Pinterest, but obviously you can't make the lifestyle shot dynamic. So I highly suggest running both. And when it comes to keywords and interests, if you have some sort of specific type of fashion or specific type of interest that's going to be or a specific type of jewelry that's going to be listed in the directory of Pinterest, definitely go for that. Because they have about 85 million people in the Pinterest network. And so there probably are a bunch of interests that you can find and target related to your niche or product. We'll go through them in a second when I show you how to set up an ad. And then in terms of keywords, this is really a numbers game. So you've got to do your keyword research. I actually use the Google keyword tool because people searching stuff on Google are kind of similar to people searching stuff on Pinterest. And they do a really good job at recommending suggested key phrases. A key phrase is like what someone types in when they're searching for something. So if you were to do black dresses, you might want to say black dresses small, black dresses large, black dresses whatever, and you want to create all of those search terms under one campaign and then bucket them. It does get a little bit more complex as you start getting down to the keyword level, but if you've ever run Google ads, it's closer to Google than it is Facebook. The interest in the audiences is closer to Facebook. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to actually show you how to set one of these up. And all of that I just said is going to make a lot more sense. So if you just type in ads.pinterest.com, you'll then go to your dashboard. If you don't already have a dashboard, it will ask you to create one. And you'll just pretty much link up your store via the app again. If you don't have the app, you will just pretty much create your ad account first because the app, I'm pretty sure, automatically creates your ad account for you if you don't already have one. We've only installed it afterwards, so it just requires a login. But either way, just go to ads.pinterest.com. And then the first thing you're going to want to do is set up or double check your conversions. So in the ad account, because the reason you want to set up your conversions first is because you can't improve what you don't track. So you really want to actually be targeting or making sure that your pixels are all working. So what you can do here is you go to tag health and you make sure that these are all green. And you can see here that the app is tracking the page view, the add to cart, and the checkout for me. So I'm good to go. I can start running ads. And if anyone clicks on my ad or engages with my ad and then goes to my website, I'll know about it. So that's step number one. Step number two is creating your audiences. Now, the reason I really suggest to create your audiences is because this is going to be your highest converting traffic. So remember when we looked at that chart and it was prospecting and remarketing, so hot and cold traffic, the hot traffic has always got the highest ROAS, return on ad spend, or ROI. And so what you want to do is you want to create all these different audiences so you can target those people first because you want to take the low-hanging fruit. So first up, what we usually do is we create audiences for different time periods. So we create maybe someone who's checked out within the last 30 days, someone who checked out in the last 180 days. Same with page view and cart, because those are the conversion events. It's really easy to make audiences in here, and you have a list here to also upload. So if you have an email list, oh, Jen, yep.
Sorry, a lot of people are asking, how do you set up the Pinterest conversion pixel on the website? So I think you may have touched on that, but a few people are asking questions that it went a little fast.
So the app will install it for you. You don't have to do it. If you can't use the app, then same as before, you're going to have to set it up with Google Tags Manager and just contact the Pinterest support, and they'll give you the documentation to set that up. But again, highly suggest you use the app. So when you're creating your audiences, you have a bunch of options. So I really suggest maximizing your remarketing first, because this is where you're going to get the best return on your ad spend. So target everybody who's visited your website, upsell products to everybody who's just purchased, upload your email list or your customer list and target those people. And not only that, but you can also create lookalikes, well, they call them actor-likes, but this is essentially the same thing as a lookalike. So a lookalike audience means that you have a seed audience of, let's say, 1,000 people, maybe who have purchased from your store, and you're like, Pinterest, I want you to go and find 1% of America that most looks like this 1,000 people, and they'll go out and they'll create a lookalike based off that. So remember, when you set up your account, you're going to install your Pinterest app. You're going to check that your conversion tracking is working, because the app is going to install that for you, and then you're going to create your audiences. Now, I highly suggest creating these ones first: page view, cart, checkout. Those are the basic ones. And then also, if you have an email list or a customer list, you want to upload that as well. So that's going to be your highest converting traffic. All right, now we've done those two things, we can actually go and create our ads. So what you're going to see is the dashboard to Pinterest here. And there's a few things that you need to note in here. So I'm going to talk about this next, but the attribution and conversion window is really, really important with Pinterest. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, and I'm going to explain exactly what it means and how to understand it. But what you want to do is you want to think about your attribution window and make sure that you're checking this up here to make sure it is, I usually suggest 30-1-1. So first off, do that. So this means that I'm going to attribute a conversion to this ad if they convert within a 30-day click, a 1-day view, or a 1-day engagement. That's what 30-1-1 means. So just make sure that you've got that. Maybe just write that down and remember that that's the conversion settings you should use. And then down here, you're going to see, similar to the other platforms, you're going to see a kind of hierarchy of campaigns, ad groups, and ads. And they have a few extra things in here based off if you're running product catalog campaigns or keyword campaigns. We'll go into that in a little bit. But to get started, we're going to start you off with the basic catalog campaigns, because remember, we're going for the lowest hanging fruit and the easiest things to get an ROI. So when you're creating a campaign, I highly suggest you use conversions or catalog sales. Now, I just always choose these just because these are conversion focused and they're optimized to attracting customers. Whereas if you're looking for brand awareness or video views, that is attracting people who like to engage with content. If you're attracting traffic, if you're using a traffic campaign, you're attracting people who like to click on ads, but you really want to focus on people who are actually going to convert. So the catalog sales one is the easiest because what this will do is it will show ads of your products that people visited your site and saw. So you're pretty much just reminding them to go and check out. Okay, so let's just say test here. And you don't have to put in spend limits. You can if you want, if you're starting on a smaller budget and you want to make sure that you don't overspend, definitely put in some limitations here. It's very easy to overspend on Pinterest. So I highly suggest if you're starting out, setting those limits in there. So the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to name your ad group, and then you're going to do dynamic retargeting. So here I'm going to say, okay, people within the last 30 days, let's say 0 end, people who visit our site or added something to their basket. So this essentially means if anybody has visited the website, looked at a product, or added that product to their cart, they are going to see an ad in their Pinterest feed showing off our product catalog. Now, you can restrict these, but I highly suggest that you don't unless you have a ton of traffic. I also suggest that if you have a lot of products, maybe separating these out in different campaigns can help control budget a little bit. But if you don't have, if you have less than 50 products, just put them all into one campaign just to keep it super easy. You have it in all group placements. You don't necessarily want to limit this one because remember, this is that hot traffic. This is the stuff that's going to convert the best out of anything. And this is the basic campaign you should start with. And you should be able to get a positive ROI on that with almost no skill. Okay, and we're optimizing to conversions, remember. So we want to optimize to the checkout because we want people to check out.
Sorry, Jack. One question is, well, two questions. When do you optimize to purchases? And two, what is an effective budget to start with? And what's an effective budget as to a percentage of the total sales?
Yeah, sure. So with your budget, it's really going to determine how much traffic you have for the remarketing campaign. So we usually suggest brands start with $100 a day if they're doing remarketing and prospecting. If you are just starting with the remarketing, you want to think about, okay, how much traffic am I getting? Because the amount of people that you can target are only as big as the amount of people that are visiting your site. So if you only have 50 people visiting a day to your website, you're probably only going to be able to spend a few dollars a day before you max out that audience. So really think about how much traffic you have and tailor your budget towards that. But I would suggest just start with $5. If you're finding that the frequency is pretty low, increase it more and more and more and more until you find that sweet spot. You can also do it the other way around. If you have a higher budget and you're more aggressive, you can start with $50 a day and then decrease it based off how high your frequency is. But just for the argument's sake, let's say start remarketing at $10, start prospecting at $50, and you should be fine there. I'll run you through setting up a prospecting campaign after this. And the second question was, when should you optimize to checkout? So I highly suggest always optimizing to checkout if you are a direct response product. If you are a service or a high cost item, you might want to, again, think about that funnel between hot and cold traffic. And you might want to have some campaigns that are focused on top of the funnel. So if you're selling jewelry, that might be a free sizing guide calculator. It might be a guide on how to spot fake diamonds. These types of ads aren't necessarily going to drive conversions, but what they are going to do is they're going to educate and provide value. And once that person visits your website, that's when you might then go and target the checkout. So that's an example of the first campaign type being, traffic and engagement, and just getting as lower cost per click as possible on the diamond guides or sizing guides. And then those people go to your website or they engage with your pin, and then you have remarketing campaigns set up that is optimized to the conversion, because those follow-up ads are going to be about the benefits of your products, the reason your products are better, pricing, offers, and all those different types of conversion factors that you can use to get the better ROI. All right, so the average cost per action. So this is kind of something that you're going to have to play around with, but you've really got to think about what your average order value is. So Shopify will show you your average order value. And so you've got to think, okay, if my average order value is, let's say, $30, let's maybe start the cost per action that I'm willing to pay at $10. So, that would mean a 3 ROAS, because 10 plus 10 plus 10 equals 30. Break-even ROAS means if I spend $10 and I sell a $10 item, that's a 1 ROAS. I know that gets a little bit complicated, but yeah, start at a third of your average order value, and then you can adjust this up or down based off how much reach you're getting and what the ROAS is. So if you have a really high ROAS but a low reach, you might want to increase what you're willing to pay to acquire that customer. If you've got a lot of reach but a really low ROI or ROAS, you might want to restrict this a little bit and be like, okay, I'm actually only willing to pay $5 to acquire this customer. So you can play around with that. Leave this as standard. Remember, change the conversion window to, I can't do 30-31, but I can't do 31-1, but do 30-31. Ideally, you do this because you want to make sure that, there's so many touch points that go into a conversion. You want to make sure that one channel doesn't monopolize on your conversions. So most channels will go on a 30-day click and a 1-day view. So what that means is someone sees an ad, they click on it, they purchase within days, that ad will get attributed that conversion. Same with the view through. So if someone sees an ad and they convert within 1 day, that means that ad will get attributed that conversion because it's within that 1-day view through period. Now you can see down here, the way that Pinterest does it, it's a little bit different because they have what they call an engagement. So they have a 30-day click. So 30-day is standard across most platforms. And then engagement, I would usually want to keep this at 1, but you can, like the minimum you can do on the ad is 30. And then the view through is 1 day. So you want to try and keep your attribution windows consistent across all of your ad channels. Some brands will do really long attribution windows, and that's fine, just as long as you keep consistency. So we like to try and keep everything at 30-day view, 30-day click and 1-day view. And so when you filled out all of that, that's when you would launch this, and that's going to launch your product catalog campaign. Now, this is the easiest one to set up. As you saw, I didn't really have to change too much. All right, so let's go to setting up a different campaign now. Does everybody understand that product catalog campaign and that's the first campaign you should set up?
So a few people asked, is this the same conversion as before, the same conversion window as before for the 31.1? I think it switched at one point.
Yep. So this is on the ads. You can only select 30/31. Ideally, you want to look at your data at a 31.1. And you can see, it goes all the way up to 60, 60, 60. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that's just my recommendation and what we like to do.
And one more question, or two really. How do you integrate the keywords, and what's a good frequency rate?
Yeah, so now we're going to go into the different types of campaigns that's going to involve audiences and keywords. That first campaign was just setting up your dynamic product ads. All right, so does everybody know what a dynamic product ad is now? Yes, thumbs up, thumbs down. I think there's one in here, actually.
I said I don't know, so you can explain it to me if you want.
Okay, so I'll show you what it looks like. So if you've run ads before on Facebook or shopping, Google Shopping or anything like that, there's some ad types that will just pull in the actual product. So it pulls in the product image, it pulls in the product description and the product price. And so from that, it's kind of, the ad's already written for you. You don't really have too much you have to do because it's just pulling it in from your Shopify store. Now, let me show you what this looks like, or it might not actually give me a preview. Yeah, it doesn't give me a preview actually in Shopify. Spotify, not Spotify, God, Pinterest. But yeah, essentially what it looks like is it's just your product image and your product description. That's the ad campaign type that you have the least sort of input on. As you create other campaigns that are actually using pins, you are going to have a lot more involvement. And I'm going to show you how to do that now. So if you want to use audiences or keywords, you're going to want to optimize the conversions. And let's just put in test here. Again, same setup. If you want to set some limits, you can definitely do that. Now, here on the ad set level, this is where we, or ad group level, I suppose, this is where we set the types of targeting that we want to do. So for example, say I want to target everybody who added to my cart, but I don't necessarily want to show them my product images. I want to show them a lifestyle shot. So you can select that. Oh man, my computer's running so slow right now. So you can select that audience, and this is going to say, okay, include everybody who adds to cart. Let's do adds to cart. And let's exclude anybody who makes a purchase. This is taking forever to add. So let's exclude people who converted. Check out. Let's even just do page view, just so it's a little bit of a bigger audience. So here you can see I'm including everybody who visited and looked at a page on my website, and I'm excluding anybody who ever purchased. Now, this is how you would set up your audience campaign. And you'll notice one slightly different thing in this setup than the product catalog. In this setup, I'm actually going to choose the ads. So we already have the product shots. So these are the images that are going to be used for our product catalog because they're getting pulled straight from Shopify. But if you've pinned much nicer looking pins to your Pinterest account, these will also be down here. Now, I highly suggest creating a board on your Pinterest account that's just called promos or something like that, or promotions or offers, sales, whatever it may be, and upload all the pins you want to use for your ads there. That'll make it much easier to find because you can look at your boards, you can look at all your pins. But you can see that this type of content is probably going to be a lot better at capturing someone's attention in Pinterest because Pinterest is very visual, it's very lifestyle focused. If you just see like, this product shot, it's probably not really that attractive for you to click on and purchase. So that's why I highly suggest that you run your catalog ads as well as your audience ads in separate campaigns. So, okay, so we've added a few of those and we'll just go through all the settings and explain them all again. Because I know I kind of jumped straight to the Pinterest section where you choose your pin.
Real quick, I'm not sure if you mentioned this, but the Shopify App Store has free credit. Did you mention that?
I didn't mention it, but you can get free Pinterest credit.
Saving the good news for last, or well, in the middle, I interrupted, but I think that's still good news. But yes, you get free credit when you get the app on the Shopify store. So
okay, even more incentive to get the app.
Yay, fun, free.
Okay, and so we're just doing an audience campaign. So we're just targeting, as I mentioned, people who visited the site and excluding people who checked out. So we're going to jump over the interests and we're going to jump over the keywords because that would be the next campaign you set up. Now, as we set up all these different campaigns, they go from hottest traffic to coldest traffic. So this is the order that I want you to set these campaigns up in. Now, you can also restrict these audiences, but we've only got 10,000 people in here, so I possibly wouldn't restrict this any further. If there's specific locations that you ship to, maybe only include those. But ideally, if you're fulfilling to all of the US, I would highly suggest having all of the US locations selected. All right. If you want to get super granular into breaking down your placements, which I don't necessarily recommend, you can choose browse or search. Now, remember that chart that I showed you? This is essentially doing this for you depending on what you're targeting anyway. Because we're only targeting an audience, we're only going to show up in these two. If we're doing keywords, we're only going to show up in search. Let me go back to where I was. Okay, so I just generally suggest just using recommended, and it's going to automatically place them in the right place for you. This is another reason to split up your different types of campaigns by audience, keyword, and interest, because you know exactly where those are going to be showing. All right, moving down, same thing. We want to optimize the checkout, and we want to put on auto bid. Auto bid will start us off if, for example, you're finding that your ROAS is not so good or your frequency is not so good. You can then start changing this to custom and saying, hey, I only want to pay X amount of dollars. Let me hold on. And then, yeah, you do your cost per action, which is essentially a CPA. So how much are you willing to pay to acquire a customer? But starting out, use auto bid because Pinterest is going to look at the ad quality. It's going to look at the competitiveness of your audiences, and it's going to find the best possible price to place your media as an ad. Now, we've selected the pins, and then once you've done that, all you have to do is launch. So pretty straightforward. Now we should have two campaigns under our belt. We have the product catalog campaign, and we have the audience remarketing campaigns. I'm just going to get out of this, and we're going to go and create our next campaign, which is going to be interests. So let's create an ad. All right, again, if you're going to do interests or keywords, I highly suggest you do targeting again. Sorry, conversions, not targeting. All of them are targeting. So you're going to want to do conversions again. You can set your ad limits if you want. Now, this one, I usually suggest excluding all of your remarketing traffic. So remember how we suggested going to have prospecting campaigns and remarketing campaigns? You don't want to have overlap between those two because you want to know, okay, this is new traffic. These people have never heard of me before. This is traffic that has already engaged with me. They're warm. They're really close to converting. And this also helps you control the types of messaging that you show to people who have never heard about your brand and the messaging that you show to people who already know about your brand and shopping your products that haven't yet purchased. So what you want to do is you want to go to your all pages and you're going to exclude that. And then you're going to go to your checkout and exclude that. So this way, it's only going to show ads to new people who don't know about your brand. Okay. Now, this is where the interest of the jewelry and fashion and all that sort of stuff comes in. So if you can find something that is very specific to your brand, so maybe you do, let's say, nail jewelry or something. you could maybe target nails, or maybe you do something in skincare. There's a bunch of stuff in here. The other thing you can do is also like search, but it's usually pretty hard to find stuff using the search. I highly suggest like going through the categories individually and finding some interest. We usually only find like, 5 to 10 interests to target. It's just not a huge library yet. Pinterest is still working on, building this out. And this is only the US. They've only got the ad network in the US. So they've only got 85 million people on that ad network right now. So this will improve over time. And I'm sure they will add more and more interests as the platform gets bigger and bigger. And they find different platforms to go, different users to bundle into these groups. But as you can see, there is a relatively big fashion segment, because fashion, food, homeware, home decor, all of those products and brands and niches that require kind of like a storyboard or a lookbook or something that's going to be an inspiration to make your purchase. All of those types of brands are the types of things that people are planning out for on Pinterest. So if you're designing a new home, you're designing a new outfit, you're designing a new kitchen, you're finding recipes, all of those things take a bit of planning. And that's what Pinterest is really good at. It's really good at discovery and planning. So you can definitely try Pinterest if you are kind of in that category where people need that visual inspiration before they make that purchase. And you'll see from the actual interest, you'll see what Pinterest really specializes in. So a lot of DIY stuff, a lot of fashion, a lot of wedding stuff, a lot of food and drink. So you'll see there's not much tech, there's not much B2B. So really think about who your target customer is and are they on Pinterest or not. The keywords we'll come back to after, because I'm going to show you a built out campaign of that, so that you'll see like the types of keywords we'll use. And so now we're really coming down to, let's choose an interest. So let's say, okay, we're doing a fashion brand. Let's say we sell dresses. I'm probably going to test all of these under dresses if this ever responds. But essentially you just have to tick the box there and you're going to select all of these dresses. Come on, come on. All right. So yeah, I would just select all of these if I'm selling dresses on my site, because I'm interested in people who also want dresses. Hold on a sec. Let's select this one. Come on. Yes, we got it. Computer, it's only Tuesday. What are you doing? Okay, so we've got about 24 to 27 million. That's still a pretty big audience. So what we can do now is we can start narrowing down a little bit. So, we're probably going to narrow this down to females. A lot of people are not haven't specified their gender. So I would just remove that if you're just doing female. Ages, you might want to tailor it to who your target customer is. So if you know that your apparel is kind of like favored towards the older demographic, maybe get rid of some of those ages. And we're starting to like break this down a little bit. I usually suggest having between 2 and 5 million in your audience size. And then if you have some really good pins, you can start going up, because your pin becomes more effective if it's working really, really well in larger audiences. Also,
we got one question. Are the interest lists prioritized upon the views, or is it just listed the way it is?
This is how Pinterest indexes their interests based off a number of things. It's an algorithm that's put together based off, engagement, boards they like, things they engage with, all that type of stuff. Also, the same thing is they'll ask you questions like what you're interested in. They'll also factor it on that. But ideally, Pinterest is trying to profile you and figure out what interests you like so that they can put you in those advertising buckets. And so here, another trick to improve your ROAS is to really look at your top states. So for example, you might find that California works really well. Actually, let's just look at all US. Okay, so where you can get this from. Why is this so bad? Okay, so what you want to do is you want to look at your Google Analytics. So annoying. What you want to do is you want to look at your Google Analytics and you want to put in all of your states that have the highest conversion rate or it has the highest number of purchases. So if you find that, for example, maybe California, the big ones are usually Texas, California, New York, Nevada, and a few other states. But you really want to find the states that have the highest conversion rate and have the most customers in them. So you want to start there, and you can always expand out past that. So, I highly suggest checking your Google Analytics or your Shopify store for those metrics. Don't try and guess. Use the data. If you don't have any data yet, try and maybe take a look at a few competitors and kind of like understand which markets they're going after. You can usually tell that by the types of content they're producing, the types of ads that they're producing, that sort of thing. So let's say that we're targeting a few of these different states, and we're at 3 million. Languages will leave, device will leave. If you want to look for usually people with a higher income, we sometimes only do iPhones. It's a higher net worth of people who have iPhones rather than Android, which can scale from like, $50 for a phone all the way up to, $3,000 a phone. So it's a much larger spectrum, whereas iPhones usually start at a minimum of 500 and up. So if you want to really look at people who have possibly more disposable income, you can also narrow that to iPhone. Leave all of that as is. Now budget, as we mentioned, this is interest, so maybe start at like 30 a day, something like that. That should be pretty easy to set based off, one, how much budget you have available, how much traffic you have, and also I highly suggest that you run, at least $100 to $200 before you assess whether or not it's a good campaign or not. And we can go into what a good campaign looks like in a second. Jen, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So we got asked a few questions here. Is it better to pin a blog post or to a product page? And did you have any data or say against that? I'll let you answer this question, and I'll keep asking you questions. So come back to me when you're done.
Sure. So it really depends on if you're targeting hot or cold traffic. So hot traffic, you want to send them to product pages. You want to send them to your homepage, either of those two. If it is cold traffic and you're trying to provide value, or you're trying to just get that click through to then remarket them at a later date, you might want to send them to a blog post or a guide or training material, anything like that. But really, if you're just getting started, just go straight for the conversions. Don't worry about creating your top and bottom of the funnel yet. Create the bottom of the funnel first, and then start working on the top of the funnel. Jen, next question.
Thank you. Yeah. We also have another question. If you have a really good pin that you've created, is it best to start advertising now? And should you just boost it, or should you actually get a business account?
Highly suggest you get a business account. It just becomes a lot easier to manage. The stats are a lot better. The control over targeting is a lot better. So what you can do is you can see here all of.
Jack, you cut out. Jack, are you speaking? Are you speaking, Jack? Uh-oh. Nope. Am I going to have to do this webinar now? Because I'm the chat master. I can't. No one wants to hear me. You're still muted, Jack. Let's see what happens. Nope. Hold on. All right, Jack. Can you speak? Ready. Speak. Nope. Can't hear you. Hold on, everyone. Hopefully we'll get Jack started soon. Jack, you still there? Okay. Well, for a while we wait for Jack, do you guys want to ask some couple questions inside the chat? And I'll see if I can answer them. Oh, Shopify webinars has joined the room. Jack, are you speaking? Nope, we can't hear you. Sounds like his headphones died. Oh, I think I hear sound. No, it's just me going crazy, guys. Don't worry.
Looks like Jack's audio has taken a break.
So it's okay. I'm here. I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
The best length to run a campaign, Carol, I personally think it's best to have at least 4 to 6 days so you can get proper data. Are you planning on running this evergreen, or are you running it for a sale? If it's a sale, you try not to do 2 to 3 days. You want to kind of have it for at least a week. But best link to test if a campaign works, especially if it's evergreen, you'll get a good enough data like after 6 days. All right, so I got, let's see. Oh guys, it's just me in here, hold on. Okay, Sabrina, you sell foodie shirts and art. Honestly, it depends. Food is really big on Pinterest, but people do eat with their eyes, so Pinterest and Instagram could be going really good hand in hand. If you're going to do top of the funnel, that's definitely on Pinterest, and Instagram can definitely help with the retargeting. So that's where I stand there. It's also a good price point that people are more likely to buy on 2 or 3 clicks. So that's definitely something to consider. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And I just connected with Jack. He's hopping off and reconnecting, so hopefully that will solve everything. Fingers crossed.
Oh, no one wanted to hear me speak? Is that what it was?
Oh no.
Just kidding.
You're amazing, Jen. And your work in the chat is epic. So thank you so much. But anyway, yeah. So hopefully, he should reconnect in a minute.
I'll keep asking questions because my fingers are getting tired. So I'll just keep answering questions. Anyways, Alex, can you provide examples of brands that market through Pinterest well? One company I actually think does a really good job is My Intent. They have these bracelets that do intentional bracelets, and
No, you still can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh.
We just don't want to hear you.
Yeah.
All right.
People are enjoying me.
All right, so don't use Pinterest. It breaks your computer.
No, here,
right.
Jack, hold on. Let me just finish one sec.
I'll hop up
on this question, and then I'll let you go.
Go for it.
So the brand that it does, it has like a really great way of breaking down what the product is and how it uses it. So that's something I put in the chat, is a step-by-step. Does really well because it's really a visual experience and does a really good job at explaining everything that is there. So now that you guys have had me for the last 5 minutes, I'll be back in the chat. Thank you.
All right, guys, sorry about that. So I got to explaining about the pins. So if you have a really good pin, it pulls it in here anyway. I highly suggest that you do that tactic that I talked about earlier, where you have a board of just promotions and offers. And then when you choose boards, you can just easily go and find those pins, so you don't have to scroll through a bunch of them. I think that's what's causing a lot of issues right now with the webinar, as well as trying to load all of these images. So use the board and use that. Next step, I'm going to take you through a keyword campaign. So we've done the product catalog campaign, we've done the audience campaigns, done the interest campaigns, and your last campaign type is going to be your keywords. Now, keywords are really high intent because you can really focus on people who are actually searching for your product solution, or maybe they're searching for the problem that your product solves. So I'm going to take you through one that is set up so you can kind of see an example of all of the keywords being used. So Cultures for Health, they do like micro-brewing stuff. So it's like sourdough bread is one of their top, products. And so you can see in here, we have a few different ads here. So we've chosen all their top posts, and you can see we're really trying to use lifestyle And a lot of these were their top posts organically. And so what we did was we pulled those in, and we used multiple of these so that you can pause the ones that aren't working. So let's just take a look at this year. So we're pulling in all the data on this one. So when you're setting up your columns, you can see a few things. So you're going to want to look at your CPA and your ROAS. So your ROAS here, which is your cost of acquiring someone, when a $10 spend selling a $10 product equals a 1 ROAS. So usually the break even is like 1.5 if you have a 50% profit margin, for example. Now here you can see the advantage to using Pinterest is that the cost of traffic is really, really cheap. So as you can see here, our click-through rates on average 245, whereas on Facebook it's usually a lot lower. Your CPMs on this is like $1. Your CPMs on Facebook and Google are usually way higher. So this is where Pinterest has the advantage. You can look at your save rates, and this is your frequency. So what I've been talking about all the time about frequency, you're going to want to make sure that your frequency doesn't go over a 3 or 4 for prospecting. But for remarketing, you can really keep your frequency in the, let's say, like 4 to 6 range, and this is over a 30-day period. And that's very conservative. And so when you're setting up your dashboard here, you're going to want to create your own conversion setup so that you can look at all of the specific things that you want to look at for the ROAS focused ad campaigns. And remember, we want to try and drive people who are going to convert. So we want to look at the ROAS and the spend, cost per click, click-through rate, all those indicators that show intent. Now on the keywords, you have all of your keywords that you're targeting here. Now, how we created this campaign and put in all these keywords was that we actually used the Google Keyword Planner to look up sourdough starter, sourdough maker, how to make sourdough, all that sort of thing. And they suggested all of these extra keywords. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to think about your store, and then you're going to think about the products in your store and the benefits or features of those products. And then you're going to break down your campaigns into, I suggest, by product. And then under that product, you want to list out all of the questions someone would have about that product, all the benefits about that product, or all the features about that product. That's an easy way to think about what keywords you should be targeting. And so you can see here we have, sourdough bread online, sourdough tin loaf, honey sourdough bread. There's all of these things that we would never be able to guess. And so that's why it's a good idea to go and use the keyword planner. Now, you're going to find with keywords is it's really a numbers game. So what I mean by that is that you're going to have, let's say, I think we've got like 250 keywords in here. Of those 250, we might find that only 50 of them actually get any spend, because this campaign, I think, only ran for a week or something. And so from that, you're going to see that your CPAs are going to be really low on individual keywords, because it's going to be really high intent and really focused on the one conversion goal, really, as opposed to interest targeting, which is a bit more broad, and your ROAS is going to be more on the interest level, which is much more broad, whereas the keyword level is very, very granular. So you're going to have to make sure that you are excluding and cutting keywords that are not performing. So the way you do that is you look at your averages. So what's my average cost per click? What's my average CPA? And should I get rid of these? If yes or no. So for example, if I have a spend of, let's say, $5 with 0 conversions, like no CPA, I want to get rid of that. So yeah, you want to go through your keywords much more granularly, and you're going to want to put more effort into finding all the keywords you want to target. So this is why I suggest doing the keyword campaigns last, just because they are the most complex and they are the hardest to master. So recapping on how you want to set it up, you want to do the connect your app, make sure the tracking works, create your audiences, then create your catalog campaign, create your remarketing audience campaigns, create your interest campaigns, and then your keyword campaigns. And once you have all of that built out, that's going to be a pretty large number of campaigns that you're going to be running, and you'll be managing that sort of day in, day out. But if you don't have to do all of those, what you can do is you can just maybe start with the remarketing. I would say 50% of stores just need remarketing, and that's it. You don't even need to start looking at the interests and the keyword campaigns and all that sort of stuff. It's just kind of complex, and you might find that you're getting way better ROAS or return on ad spend with your remarketing. So that's kind of like an overview of creating all those different ad campaigns. And you can see here that we've broken these out by kind of like different types of keyword searches, but most of them are based off product. And I suggest doing conversion campaigns over traffic. We tried some of these traffic campaigns, but they didn't work too well. Definitely go with conversion focused. The conversion can also change. So the conversion can be a purchase, the conversion can be an add to cart or a page view. So you can kind of gauge which one of those conversion goals you want to achieve. Top of the funnel, you would be optimizing to a page view conversion. Bottom of the funnel, you're optimizing to a checkout conversion. Were there any other questions there, Jen?
We froze a bit, so let me see if everyone's having issues. Did anyone have any questions while he froze? No. One person did ask, what does remarketing, I said in the chat, remarketing is low-hanging fruit. So if you want to kind of expand on that, that'd be good.
I'm just going to close Pinterest because I think that's what's messing up the audio and visual. So, as in, what does low-hanging fruit mean?
Yes.
Okay, so low-hanging fruit is definitely just a terminology used for something that's easy to do. So instead of reaching for the high fruit, you reach for the low fruit. It's not an actual like marketing or media buying term. Might actually be an Australian term.
Could be. But low-hanging fruit, I like to say it's kind of just the easiest ones to grab. So you already have that audience. You already know that they're kind of interested. Just the easiest ones to kind of guarantee some kind of interaction, some kind of purchase, some kind of anything from. Versus a prospect, you have no idea if they'll click on your ad. The higher hanging fruit, as Jack said, I don't think that's a real term, but that's fine. A couple of questions just came through. Mm-hmm. Let's see where to go. How would you research competitors in your field on Pinterest?
On Pinterest, you're literally just going to their boards and just looking at all their content. I would say you want to look at their website, you want to look at all their Facebook ads, which you can do with the View Library feature. Then you want to look at all of their pins. Look at the pins with a lot of engagement. Look at the pins that they're frequently pinning on other boards. Usually if they're pinning one pin or two pins in a lot of places, means that that pin is working. So that's kind of like how you're going to do the research on that. You could also start looking at tools like SEMrush, Ahrefs, and all that sort of stuff. So you can do a little bit of a deeper dive on your competitors to see, you know, websites that are linking to them, how much traffic they're getting, possibly how much money they're spending on search ads, that sort of thing. But yeah, a lot of it on Pinterest is just very visual.
One more thing is you cut out during the recap. So if you can summarize the recap real quick. Got
it. Okay. So when you are going to start with Pinterest, first thing, connect your Shopify app. And then what you want to do is you want to check that your tracking is working. And then you're going to create your audiences. And then you're going to create your campaigns. Now, your first campaign that you're going to create is the product catalog campaign. And then you're going to create your audience campaign, which is all your remarketing. And then your interest campaign, which is your prospecting. And then your keyword campaigns, which is your prospecting as well. So that's the order of things I would do if I was going to get started with Pinterest. And remember, you don't have to do all of those. You can maybe stop at interest, or you could stop at remarketing. You can just add on to these as you need. The next thing we're going to go through is a few things about how to create, you know, good ads, or how to get the best results from your creative. So a few things here to note about Pinterest is it's very, very visual. So you really want to focus on making something that's going to naturally appear in the Pinterest feed, and people are actually going to engage with it without thinking it's like too salesy or too self-promotional. You know, and if it's cold traffic, that's even more important. If it's hot traffic, you can be a little bit more sales driven. So one little trick here is to create your pins and then attach your product to them. So that's an easy way to add a little call to action to go and purchase from more organic looking content. So that's an example of that here. Definitely speak to the benefits of your product, not necessarily the features. So talk about, you know, how, you know, sourdough bread, why sourdough bread is so good, show off why people like it, all of that sort of stuff. So talk about the benefits, not necessarily your features. Make sure that you understand your target market and customer. So what are they interested in? What questions do they ask? What content do they like looking at? You know, all of those different things will go into making a really good pin, because if you can tailor and understand what your target market likes and dislikes, you can create content that they're going to like and engage with, and that's going to improve you get more click-throughs. It's going to help you get more conversions. So really it revolves around the customer and then the benefits of your product. Don't just list off all your features and don't just list off a price, because people are usually not necessarily on Pinterest to just like go shopping. They're more looking for inspiration, mood boards, discovery boards, and that sort of thing. So they're kind of definitely in the research stage. The other thing is, I really suggest using a video. So not many brands use video on Pinterest, and it stands out so much when everything else is static. So definitely, if you want to create some really engaging, compelling ads, use video, and make sure that you are always using the portrait size. The portrait size. It's kind of like this, you know, taller than wider aspect ratio. 2:3 ratio, 1000 by 1500 is the ideal size. And then you want to have, you know, maximum of 15 minutes. I don't even think that's right. I got that from the Pinterest website, but I don't think it can be 15 minutes. And, but yeah, the main thing is really focus on capturing someone's attention really quickly. Like you can see that this ad here is only maybe like 6 seconds. That shows the value, shows the benefit of the product, and it's very quick. So you want to focus on getting over the benefit as quickly as possible. And that can be done way easier when you are using video rather than a static image. So once you've got all your campaigns, remember that's controlling your traffic. So remember that triangle I talked about at the very start. So your campaigns, that's controlling your traffic. And then your ad creative and copy is your actual pins. So you want to be continually improving both of these. So you want to keep testing different pins. You want to keep testing different audiences. And you'll find that over time, you'll find better and better ones to target and better pins to use. So a few things that you can note down on what works with Pinterest. You know, use call to actions, use icons and emojis, that sort of stuff. Portrait is best, but you can do kind of like square images and that sort of stuff. But I highly suggest looking at using the portrait ones, because as you can see here, this is way more engaging content than this. This is the one we're looking at, necessarily this one. Even though these guys did a really good job at designing this, just the fact that this is video and it's bigger is the reason you're looking at this one, not this one right now. Be super upfront with the value proposition. This would be a more bottom of the funnel sort of hot traffic, because they're talking about their pricing, they're talking about an offer or a discount. So that's usually when someone's already engaged with the brand. And then this one is more discovery. So you can see that this is really focusing on the benefit. You know, a simple 2-step regime for clearer skin. So this is really focusing on the benefit of it, not necessarily pushing a sales offer. Again, first 3 seconds, you need to grab that attention. You need to make sure that people understand what the value is super quickly. So using icons, steps, you know, bolded fonts and that sort of thing can work really well. I highly suggest that you just use Canva. So Canva is a design tool, and they have a ton of presets or templates in there for Pinterest. And that will take away a lot of the design issues that you might come across trying to design this from scratch.
And
so just use something like that.
If I can throw in here, I actually really like to go onto a desktop on Pinterest and just kind of scroll around. And the ones that stand out the most are the ones I take note of. What caught your eye? What made you stop? We call it scroll thumb stopping creative. So when you're using your thumbs to go through, but on a desktop, you can kind of see full layout of what really stands out. And it's not your competitor necessarily, but it definitely will show you what they're doing and how you can stand out of it amongst them.
Okay, nice, great tip. And then this is the last section we're going to go through, and this is a little bit more complex. It goes into attribution. So attribution is really important with Pinterest because Pinterest is typically top of the funnel, meaning that it's the first touch point that people have with your brand, and people will usually convert through organic search, Facebook, Instagram, or Google. So usually Pinterest is the top. Now, you can't write off Pinterest as not working because the problem is that most platforms will look at last click attribution. So as you see here, as these are all the different touch points, you see someone views, someone clicks, view, purchase. Now, a lot of the ad platforms and a lot of the analytics tracking is only going to track the click because they usually look at last click attribution. So understanding this is really important. There's a few free tools that you can use. Facebook has a tool called the attribution tool. Google has an attribution tool. And you can also use dedicated tools like Wicked Reports or Mixpanel, all that sort of stuff. Now, you don't have to do this to start with. This is something that's way more advanced, but when you do check all your stats and you are running Pinterest, if you're noticing that you're not getting a good ROI or you don't see conversions coming from Pinterest, it may be because Shopify or your analytics tracking is only looking at the click-through attribution. So whereas people are engaging with your pins and then going to your website and then maybe not purchasing for another 20 or 30 days, because as I mentioned before, Pinterest is very much a planning platform. People are going there for inspiration, they're going there for their lookbooks, they're going there to create a vision. So you're not going to get a direct click conversion in a lot of the cases. So think about your attribution, and this is a quick snapshot of all the different types of attribution. This is going to become more and more important as you scale your brands. So as you add, your Facebook ads, your Google ads, your Pinterest ads, your SEO, your email marketing, attribution is going to be a lot more important because you want to know where and which channel that conversion came from. So the different types of attribution are last click, which is the default in most platforms. And then you have first click, which is probably going to be the most common for Pinterest. Now, looking at the first click, that's usually when someone first engages with your brand. So that's the entry point of the funnel. Last click is usually where someone converts. So that's the exit of the funnel. And these ones in the middle are good kind of like middle grounds. And so definitely keep this in mind. When you're running your Pinterest ads, just note that, maybe if you're not seeing conversions, it's because there's a lot of first click conversion attributions happening, but a lot of your platforms are looking at the last click. So they're not attributing the conversion to Pinterest. This is a quick example of a campaign that we ran, and this is what we saw in the last click. So, barely had a 0.9 ROAS, a 1.2 ROAS and a 1 ROAS, but then looking at the positional 40, which is 40% of the attribution given to the first click, 40% to the last click, we saw that this ROAS was actually a lot better. So keep that in mind when you're running Pinterest, because that is one of the main factors that we come across when brands are running Pinterest ads. They say, oh, Pinterest isn't working, and it's usually just because the attribution isn't being looked at. Now, a few things to remember. Think about that funnel that I was showing you from hot to cold. Think about those three triangles. So the ad copy and creative optimization, the traffic optimization, and then the website experience optimization. Start with your remarketing. Do that first. Set up all your audiences, set up your remarketing ads first. Use your data to optimize. So if there is an ad that it doesn't have as good a click-through rate, or it doesn't have as good a ROAS, turn that one off so that you can allocate your budget to the ads that are performing well. Same with your audiences and your keywords. And always be testing creative. Creative has the biggest impact on your ROAS than anything else that you'll do. You could have the best product in the world, but if you cannot demonstrate that in your creative, it's very hard to get people to click over and discover more about your product. So quickly, I want to give you a to-do list. So by next week, you should try and install a Pinterest app, talk to your top customers, understand what content they like, so that you can use that in your pins. Segment your traffic into prospecting and remarketing. Remember, excluding all your remarketing traffic from your prospecting campaigns. Use video, it's gonna stand out a lot more. When you're on Pinterest, a lot of people are on mobile, so optimize your website to mobile usage as well. Most of e-commerce is shifting to mobile. So whether it's coming from Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all of these platforms are mainly mobile users. So you can probably see in your Google Analytics that there's a very large percentage of people coming to your website on mobile, but the conversion rate is probably higher on desktop. You want to try and focus on improving your conversion rate on mobile. Respond to all your comments. So engage with your audience, talk to the people in the comments who are engaging with your brand and your ads. You'll learn a lot about your customer there. You'll learn a lot about what people think about your brand, and that will help you create better content. It will help you possibly make changes to your product, changes to your marketing messaging, all that sort of stuff. And these ones are pretty basic. Double down on remarketing, focus on shares and tags and getting all of the engagement going, because you want to get earned impressions. That can be another discussion, because I know we're running pretty late on this because I had that dropout. But let me know if you have any questions now. We can go through those. Doesn't have to be Pinterest related, can be anything to do with e-commerce.
I've got a few.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a benchmark of what e-commerce conversions come from when swiping with a swipe up attribution versus a view attribution?
Well, a swipe up is just a click-through attribution. They'll count that as a click when they're looking at how that person came to that website. The swipe up will just register as a click.
Okay.
Is that the question?
I think so. We'll see. What's the difference between running Pinterest ads through Shopify versus promoting pin ads on Pinterest?
So I highly suggest always using the ad platform. If you run it from Shopify, you don't have the option to include, exclude audiences. You don't have the option to choose those interests. You don't have the option to use keywords. So using the actual platform, it gives you a lot more control. And as you saw in Pinterest, you had the option to choose any of your pins, where Shopify, you're just choosing a product, and that's going to pull in the product image, which may not necessarily be that enticing for a Pinterest feed, because it's just maybe a product shot with a white background. Remember, lifestyle shots do a lot better.
Cool. And when creating a promotions board, should we make that public or keep it hidden?
I usually just keeping it hidden. But yeah, it's completely up to you. If you don't mind people seeing, the promotions you're running, then that's fine. If you want to hide that, then yeah, just keep it hidden.
Cool. And what are the most common fails on Pinterest, and how should you best avoid them? I think avoiding them is just don't do it. I'm just kidding.
So yeah, product shots. Boring creative. Like for example, image with no with just like a white background, stuff like that. That stands out from a mile away. So you only want to do that when the traffic is really, really hot and they're considering buying your product, and you just need to put that product back in front of them and say, you left this in your cart, or we're waiting for you to check out, something like that. The other thing is people not using the right image sizes. So if you use landscape, you're just not really using any of the sort of advantages that Pinterest offers you. Pinterest has by far the biggest image ratio that you can put for an ad. They also don't really have restrictions on text or anything. So when you are doing something on Facebook or Google, you have a lot more restrictions than you do on Pinterest. Pinterest is very lenient with the creative that you can use, and the text and the things that you can put in your ad. So make sure that when you're creating ads that you're adding in, overlays, you're adding in titles, you're adding in icons or arrows pointing to things, and adding a call to action to the image. All those types of things you can't necessarily do on some of those other platforms. So that's what makes Pinterest a really good platform for that. So if you can combine lifestyle with kind of those overlays, you'll have a really good balance between getting someone to convert, but also not be too salesy.
Yeah, and to add also with the creative, I read somewhere that Pinterest has the largest ad creative real estate, which means when you actually look at the grid, they do it really well with the vertical just because of the way it works versus like a YouTube size. So you're better off creating a very nice vertical pin to take up a lot of that real estate on that page. It's gonna be visually appealing, and it's gonna be right there for you. But that's what I wanted.
Yeah, so the other question, going back on the conversion rate, I was just thinking about it. So a good conversion rate for an e-commerce store is roughly between 3 and 5%. If you're in that range, you're in a really good spot. If you're below that and you're selling expensive products, that's fine. If you're below that and you're selling, something for less than $100, you want to try and improve that conversion rate before you sort of start running ads. The other thing to think of is where are you getting your traffic? If you're getting really low quality traffic, that could be one of the reasons why your conversion rate is not so good. So aim for 3 to 5% for your website conversion rate. If you have that and then you go to Pinterest, you'll be much more successful.
All right, let me just check in the chat. What settings should you use for a photo? I know you mentioned video.
Yeah, so if you can, use videos or GIFs, that sort of thing. If you can't, use images built in Canva. I'm pretty sure Canva also has like a video feature now, so you can also create videos in Canva as well. So I would definitely kind of start with some sort of design template because it just makes it a lot easier. And just take inspiration from what else is out there in your industry and what catches your eyes, like Jen was saying.
Yeah, and I think last one, this one's a little more specific, but what's a good CTR for a meal delivery service? I don't know if you know about meal delivery services, but what would be a good CTR?
So click-through rate on Pinterest is usually a bit higher, but as you saw, the click-through rate varies hugely, whether you're running keyword campaigns or whether you're running interest campaigns. Ideally, you want to be kind of like above 2%. But in the keyword campaigns, you can have keywords that are, got a 30% click-through rate just because the keyword is so specific to what you're doing. So the best way to gauge that is to look at your averages. So what is the average click-through rate across your entire account? What is the average click-through rate across that campaign? And then you'll be able to get rid of pins that are underperforming or get rid of interests that are underperforming or keywords. That's the best way to do it. And in terms of like an industry standard, it's really hard to give an industry standard just because they change so much depending on what that person's doing. But yeah, generally above 2% is good.
And if you have low conversion rates, where should you put your efforts before we activate Pinterest ads?
Yeah, so if you have low conversion rate, really think about when someone comes to your website, what's the experience like? Above the fold, do they understand what your product is straight away? Are you showing your product in image?
Oh, Jack, you're cutting out.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So talk about the benefits. The other thing is show validation. So show your product reviews, show product testimonials, places you've been featured. Adding all of those things to your website will really help. The other thing is to make sure that your buy buttons are above the fold. So many brands have their product shots above the fold, and you've got to scroll halfway down the page before you can actually buy it. Now, if you use a scroll tracking app, you'll know that 80% of people don't even scroll past halfway. So you want to make sure that you have your add to cart or buy now button as high up the page as possible. So, thinking about those sorts of things will help you improve that conversion rate. Another big thing is the speed of your website. If the speed of your website is slow, then that's going to definitely slow down your conversion rate on mobile.
And how many customers can be in an uploaded email list to have an act-alike audience?
Yeah, I usually suggest about like 500 to 1,000. Ideally, the more you have, the better, because you have more information to give Pinterest. But yeah, 500 to 1,000 is good. And ideally, you want to bucket these people that are more similar. So for example, some that we would do is we would export customers with the highest lifetime value, or customers who have purchased 3+ times, or maybe customers with specific product purchases. So if you're creating a lookalike and you want to target people who just buy dresses, export everybody who bought dresses. Don't focus on the people who are buying pants and beanies and t-shirts. So try and, if you have enough data, try and bucket them. But if you don't have enough data, yeah, just 500 to 1,000 is a good amount to start with. Oh, I can't hear you now.
That's because I turned off my mic, so don't worry. That's why you can hear me. What do you recommend to increase conversion rate? Someone has an online boutique on Shopify and the conversion rate is 2.9%. If I may say, 2.9% is actually really great to start with, but if you have any tips, go Jack.
Yeah, sure. So what I was mentioning before about showing a product, showing the benefits, showing lifestyle shots, making sure the buy button is above the fold, showing off reviews, use cases, that sort of thing is really good. If you have video testimonials, they can also really help. So people talking about how much they love your product or how much that product changed their life. That sort of content is really compelling because it's very organic and it's very emotional, and emotions really help sell products. So thinking about some of those things. In terms of your website, just make sure that you're prioritizing your top selling products. So when you have a homepage, put your most popular products up as high the page as possible. Ensure that people are spending their money wisely. So having money back guarantees, free returns, free shipping or shipping times, or free shipping over $50. That sort of stuff can help increase average order value and conversion rates. And a few other things I can think of. On top of that, for a boutique, is that like a clothing boutique?
It just says boutique, but if she's in here.
Okay, if it's clothing, yeah, if it's clothing, sizing guides, that sort of stuff, free returns is really important. On apparel, doing big drops, so product drops. So we do a lot of these, a lot of brands, building up the suspense, building up anticipation for dropping a new product line. That will generate a much higher conversion rate on the days that you do those drops, and it gets people to open your emails, it gets people to take notice. Because people, like, you look at brands like Supreme, they've done this extremely well, where they've created a lot of anticipation about new product releases, and that's what creates that huge demand.
Cool. And one other question, or two other questions, I think.
Actually, a few more other things on that conversion rate.
Oh, sorry.
Just before we move on, your checkout options. So maybe installing Afterpay, maybe having checkout with Amazon, checkout with Shopify's checkout system, and then obviously the checkout with credit card. That can also help with conversion rates.
Yep. Thank you. And then if someone's connected to Pinterest manually, will the Pinterest app still be needed or useful?
No, you probably won't need the Pinterest app, because if your pixel tracking is already there, you already have that. You'll probably have to manually upload your products, I would say, or use a different product feed option, which you have to talk to Pinterest about, the best way to do that. But yeah, you probably wouldn't need the app, because at that point, you're probably running the ads through the ad account as well. You're probably not running it through Shopify.
And then one other question, which I think I can help answer, because I would like to say it's my specialty, but how do you do copywriting for the ads?
You go for it.
Yeah, thank you. My moment. There's a few things to do here. I like to say use your elevator pitch. It's short, it's succinct, it's really what gets you to the point. It's, you want to give them a quick punch of why they should buy your product. And then also, you also, like we said, when you have the surveys from everyone, use that as your copy too. Your customers are here to write your copy. I love this because I get to XYZ. I wore it because my kids love XYZ. They're writing that copy for you. Absolutely leverage it. And also with the surveys, you can see what they don't like. So you can avoid using that in copy. If they don't like the color, if they don't like something weird about it, don't mention it. So always use benefits, always use your elevator pitch, always use your customers, and you'll have pretty much a golden rule. I also like to, in case you haven't seen it in the chat, I like to use emojis for a lot of things, and I do think it does get the point across very fast.
Yeah, emojis break up text very well.
I also read somewhere, in case anyone was interested, that emojis are the way of, it's not a GIF, but it's a way of communicating feelings without having to text it with words. So if anyone was wondering, emojis are helpful.
Nice.
But, thank you. I think that's all the questions I've seen. All right, guys, last chance for questions. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
No questions.
Nice. Well, if you
Yeah.
have follow-up questions, you want the slides or any of that sort of stuff, definitely shoot us an email. If you have any follow-up questions about your e-commerce store or anything like that, let us know. We'll be more than happy to answer those. Work with a lot of apparel brands, that sort of stuff. So usually we can answer most of those questions. In terms of this recording, I'm pretty sure Hans said he was going to record it and send that out. So you should be okay. And yeah, thank you very much for listening, guys. Hopefully you got some value from this. And let us know if you enjoyed it in the Facebook group. So head over there. Hans would really appreciate that. And enjoy the rest of your day. See you guys.